Welcome to Comics Cuts Live. Got a great show tonight. I'm so happy that we're finally talking about Batman and the Batman movie. Finally learning a lot more about Batman, and it is time, man. But it seems like we keep to Avengers Doomsday, Spider-Man Brand New Day. It's been Fantastic Four. But yeah, so tonight we're going to get into all the Batman Part 2 stuff. We're going to talk about the villains, Avengers Doomsday with some scoops there, and Spider-Man. So, all right. So Matt Reeves did like 7 minutes with Josh Horowitz from Happy, Sad, Confused. And in those 7 minutes, he lit the internet on fire. I think that's just a sign that people really want this version of Batman. Everybody loves the Batman. The DCU is coming, but the Batman Epic Crime Saga still has a ton of hype. So Matt Reeves spoke a bit around the villain and described it as something that's never really been done before in a movie. And when Matt Reeves said that this is something that's never been done before in a movie, and he also mentioned that it's something that is going to explore Bruce Wayne more. Bruce Wayne is going to find it very hard to be Batman, and the villain is going to push on not just his Batman, but also his life as Bruce Wayne. So a couple of villains got mentioned online that seemed to lit the internet on fire with theories. So we're going to roll down all of them, and we're going to tell you about each one of them. First one, this is the obvious one. This is my choice. If you've been watching me, you know I love the Court of Owls. That is a secret society, as you could see. Those are the people in the mask, and then there are the Talons. And the Talons are the ones who do the fighting and the bidding for the Court of Owls, who is that elite Gotham secret society that really control everything in Gotham. Now, the members are, like I said, wealthy elites, and they manipulate events from behind the scenes. They use the assassins, the Talons as assassins, and the Talons are ruthless. They are incredible fighters, so they give Batman a run for their money. And I think that would be a huge plus for this movie, because the one big complaint I had about the Batman was, as much as I love it, but it didn't have enough action. It didn't have enough combat where Batman we didn't have amazing action scenes with Batman. So if I had to choose a villain for the Batman Part 2, one of the traits that I would go for is a villain who would force Batman to have to level up his combat and give Matt Reeves the premise to give us incredible action. And let me tell you, the Talons could do that, okay? And again, if you just got in here, the Talons are the guy in the middle is a Talon. The ones in the white masks are just the Court of Owls, Gotham elites who remain anonymous at their meetings behind the masks. And so that's a big thing you got to understand. The key storyline where the Court of Owls became known from was Scott Snyder's Court of Owls it was the first story arc in his New 52 Batman run. If you want to read a good Batman comic and a good Court of Owls comic, that is the comic that got me obsessed with comics. I highly recommend it. Anyway, basically what happens is Batman discovers that the Court of Owls is real, and he dismissed it as a myth because he was like, if they had existed and they were this powerful, like I would know who they were. And he stops looking for them, and then he realizes he should look further. And when he looks further, he finds them. There's also an animated movie called Batman vs. Robin. It's the sequel to Batman and Son, but they are the villain in Batman vs. Robin. It's a good animated movie. Check it out. I think it's on HBO Max. anyway, but it's great. So now the things that there are a couple of like big important people in the Court of Owls, which Lincoln March is the top guy at, or the most important one to like just Batman stories in general. And he is claimed to be Bruce Wayne's long lost brother in some stories. So that would be interesting because, again, Matt Reeves had said that this villain is going to push on not just Batman, but Bruce Wayne as well. So Lincoln March being part of the Court of Owls and claiming that he's Bruce Wayne's long lost brother could make sense in that storyline. And I think it would be interesting considering from the Batman, when we watch the Batman, you know, one of the things the Riddler tried to get in Bruce Wayne's head, granted, he obviously didn't know Bruce Wayne was Batman, but he tried to convince Bruce Wayne that Martha, you know, and Bruce's parents were bad people. He tried to convince Bruce and Gotham City that the Waynes and the Arkhams are bad people. And remember how much that messed with Bruce Wayne when he went to Alfred about it. So you could play into that storyline with that as well. But, you know, Gotham's corruption and secret elites in the Batman also could play into this as well. And the Penguin trailers also had shadowy power struggles that fans had speculated could be the Court of Owls. And of course, there was the end of the Penguin series where we saw those owl statue figurines in the courtroom, Court of Owls, owl figures in the court. So whether they're doing the Court of Owls or not, the fact that they did that means they 100% want the Court of Owls to be part of the conversation. Okay. So now that's for the Court of Owls. The other big one going around is, of course, Hush. Now, Hush is Thomas Elliot, who was Bruce Wayne's best childhood friend. He is a master strategist, a master manipulator, and he is a surgeon. But the thing is that he also manipulates other villains against Batman and, you know, gets those villains to do his dirty work. He is a genius surgical, you know, guy, and he's almost like a mirror image in an evil way of Batman, because Hush being, you know, Thomas Elliot, he lost his parents, and he, instead of, you know, trying to do right and like do the right thing, he became evil from losing his parents. He wanted to lose his parents. He helped his parents die. And he like he's like the evil opposite mirror view of Bruce Wayne, but he hates Bruce Wayne. He's jealous of Bruce Wayne. He blames Bruce Wayne for his parents surviving. And that's the big thing about Hush. Now, the interesting thing in terms of the social commentary on Twitter today around Hush, and I've been noticing this for a couple of weeks, is the fact that a lot of people are starting to say Hush is a bad comic and a bad villain. Let me tell you something about the Hush Batman comics. When those Batman comics were releasing, people were going to the store on the release date of each issue, reading them in the store to talk about that issue with other fans in stores. I've never heard of another comic where that happened. Okay. So when Hush originally came out, people went crazy over it. And this was in the 2000s, like late 2000s. And it's had a pretty good reputation for a really long time. But I think people started to hate on Hush is the fact that they changed a lot of the story for the animated movie. Hush, that's, you know, DC makes a lot of animated movies. And the other thing is Hush 2, which has been releasing over the past couple months. It's been hard. I wouldn't say hard. Yeah, it's not good. It's definitely not good. And it's also written by Jeff Loeb, who wrote the original Hush story. He's a famous comic writer, so I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the name. But it's not good. It's getting a lot of heat. A lot of people are talking smack about it, and rightfully so. But that doesn't make the first one bad. I just think people are stupid. And I also think a lot of people have never read the comic, and it's easier to jump on the bandwagon and hate on something. Hush would be a good villain for this movie. The other issue with Hush is that Hush really only has one good story, and that's his debut. Okay? That doesn't make him a bad villain, because if you use Hush, you could use that story considering it's never been done in live action. Okay? So I don't see Hush being a bad choice. I don't think he's as good of a choice of Court of Owls, but he's not a bad choice. I would still be happy with Hush. Okay? All right. Now, there are two other names that are floating around. The other one, which is interesting, is Phantasm. And this one is a very famous character from Mask of Phantasm. Andrea Beaumont, and her original debut was in Batman, The Mask of Phantasm. And that came out like in the 90s on VHS. I had it growing up. I used to watch that movie all the time. It was fire. And she is a vigilante assassin with like a blade that's attached to her hand, which you can see there, and on her right hand. But her whole thing is that her father was in the mafia, and she is driven by revenge against Gotham's like mafia because her father was killed. So that's her whole thing. And she's also kind of like a dark mirror to Batman in a way, because she lost her father and she's driven by vengeance. But the key distinction between her and Batman is Batman's not only driven by vengeance, he's also driven by justice, where the Phantasm, Andrea Beaumont, is not driven by justice. But a big distinction for Phantasm, Andrea Beaumont, is that she dated Bruce Wayne in The Mask of Phantasm. So that could be an interesting thing here too. Again, they're saying that it's a Bruce Wayne story, and this villain is going to have a role with Bruce Wayne and not just Batman. So that's why I think her name is floating around the internet as well. The other one needs really no picture, but the other big name that's being floated around is Two-Face. Two-Face, we've seen in live action, but he wasn't really his story in The Dark Knight. He was a supporting character. He was not the main villain. I think that they could do a Two-Face story. I like Two-Face. I always like Two-Face. I don't want to say I would complain if it was Two-Face, but there are so many better choices. But at the same time, it's this gritty, realistic version of Batman and Gotham City. Two-Face has like an element of being realistic, called the Harvey Dent storyline. And that's what Nolan was going for too. So it could make sense that it's Two-Face. Okay. But anyway, I think it would be cool. So supposedly Penguin is going to appear in this movie as well. And Penguin, listen, I thought he stole like almost every scene he was in the first one. I really, really liked him from day one. And then that show came out, and I think he earned some more respect from just everyone. That show was incredible. Like, it's very rare you see a show have that many accolades and have that be received as well amongst fans, critics, everyone, right? So Sophia Falcone is supposedly not going to be in this movie. Or not supposedly, they said she doesn't need to be. Listen, I think she's a phenomenal actress. I think she was great, but we don't need her in the Batman, And I was talking about this on Twitter, and someone was like, oh, well, she's the stepsister of Catwoman. Like, bro, we don't need Catwoman's family members in the movie. And Catwoman might not even be in the movie anyway, okay? So it's supposed to go deeper into corruption and darker layers of Gotham that we haven't seen before. That makes it sound to me like it's Court of Owls. I know everyone's saying it's Hush, but when I hear something like that, I think it's the Court of Owls. So yeah, listen, if I had to guess, I would guess it's going to be Court of Owls. That's my guess. That I know the whole internet is on Hush. I think it's going to be the Court of Owls. That is my guess. All right, let's get to Hungry Almighty. Welcome back, Hungry. Thank you for always popping in. I appreciate it. All right, so Hungry Almighty, if they make a third movie, do you think Two-Face is a great trilogy finale villain? It's a great question. I would say no. I just don't think he can be. Like, you can do it right, but he wouldn't be top of mind. Like, here's the thing. Two-Face makes sense for this version of Gotham. However, like, I would like to see a much more badass, like, savage villain, like Court of Owls. I don't know if I would rather see Two-Face or Hush, but like, we're talking about if the Court of Owls are going to be the villain in part 2, you have to go bigger in part 3. You know what I mean? And but at the same time, if you asked a lot of people before the first movie came out if Riddler was a good choice, most people would have said no. Most people were hating on that decision. I said this version of Riddler looks pretty cool. I always liked Riddler. I really did. I think Riddler's a really cool character. I am a fan of him. I think they did a really good job with him. Like, Riddler is someone who works really well. You could get really creative with him. There are a lot of cool comics where Riddler makes a big impact on the story, whether he's the main villain or a side villain. I'm a big fan of Riddler. So, and I'm also a big fan of Two-Face. Like, I don't know if he would be my first choice, but I think Matt Reeves can make it work really well. If they make a third movie, I don't want to see Joker as the main villain. You can have him appear, obviously, but not the central villain. You know, Slab was talking smack about the Joker. I forget where it was. I think it was on Twitter. I know I commented, and I agreed with him. And I know, hold on. You know what? I'm going to find the tweet. Hold on. Give me a second here. All right. So Slav said, the Joker has become an overused villain in comics and movies, overshadowing other compelling Batman villains like Mr. Freeze, Scarecrow, and Clayface. You know how I feel about Mr. Freeze. But he's got a point. And there's a video that accompanies it where he says more. But the thing about the Joker that I think people miss is that the Joker is the perfect villain that challenges Batman's no-kill rule and his entire mythos. Like, if you have the right creatives behind it and they do the Joker could be the best villain choice out of all of them. There's a reason the Joker is so overused and, as Slav said in his video, overexposed. I understand that people are kind of sick of him because we always see him, but when the Joker is done right, you get a movie like The Dark Knight. When the Joker is done right, you get a comic like Three Jokers. And that's what I said to Slav, because the Three Jokers story was very creative. But the reason I loved it so much was the ending. Batman had a piece of paper. He acquired a piece of paper that had Joker's real name, his origin, everything. And him and the Bat family wanted to read it. And I forget exactly how, I think he burned it or something. But Batman said, it makes no difference how he became who he is. He is who he is, and that's who we're dealing with. So I don't want to know. It's things like that. And you could do different things for it. I think the 3 Joker story would be really cool for DCU. But I don't think they should start with the Joker. I think the Joker needs to be in Gotham but I don't know if that's the right choice for the villain, because similar to what you and Slav are saying, like the thing I think applies most to the DCU. The DCU needs to feel fresh and new. And in order to do that, you can't use the Joker. Too many people have seen you've seen the Joker in Batman 89. You've seen the Joker in The Dark Knight. You've seen him in the Batman the Animated Series and those animated movies. He's in everything. So I do understand that, but I still think, like, if you're going to use the Joker, you have to do it in a groundbreaking way that makes people think, like a big idea type of thing, like Jeff Johns did with 3 Jokers. I have a cool idea on what storylines can be used for the Brave and the Bold. I'd love to hear it. And who do you want for the Batman Part 2? Who do you want to be the villain? Side note, so Tatiana Maslany, I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right, but after what happened with Jimmy Kimmel, she posted on her Instagram story, cancel your Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN subscriptions. So I tweeted, I had to say something. What did I write? Now we won't have to see She-Hulk again. All right. So the 3 storylines they can use, according to Hungry Almighty, is Grant Morrison, Batman and Son, Under the Red Hood, and Death in the Family. I'll explain more in a different chat. By the way, I kind of was hoping we got the Grant Morrison, Batman and Son storyline. I would love to see that. And also that brings in Ra's al Ghul, which I think would be a great choice, even though he's been done before. Ra's al Ghul, I feel like Ra's al Ghul is one of the perfect villains to have in the DCU, because there's that fantastical. I got to get a better word to use than fantastical. I hate the word fantasy. I hate the word fantastical. It sounds sus. I'm going to be using a better word soon. I got to find the word. I want Court of Owls as the main villain for Batman Part 2. 100% agree with you. I don't think there's a better choice. And I think it's going to be Court of Owls. If I had to put money on it, I would bet Court of Owls. All right. All right. So before we get into Marvel, I want to go into one quick thing about Peacemaker. So Peacemaker, by the way, I think this show has been great. I really do. I am loving season 2. I think James Gunn is doing a great job with it. But it's kind of reminding me of a Crisis book a little bit with what they're doing. And that's what I wanted to talk about it, because when Peacemaker goes to this other dimension, and it's not an Earth, but it's another dimension where his brother is alive and Hardcore is in love with him and all these things. And he tells his friends in his native dimension that this other world is amazing. It's better. He loves it. That reminded me of a Crisis book, because like in Infinite Crisis, the premise was trying to make one Earth the main Earth and erasing the others. That, to me, sounds so much like Peacemaker's multiverse reference or multidimensional reference, which is what James Gunn, I think I corrected Josh Horowitz again. Josh Horowitz is crushing it lately, but he's talking to everyone. But yeah, James Gunn said it's not multiversal, it's multidimensional, but still, you know, the whole thing about like Infinite Crisis is they want to make one Earth the main Earth, and that's kind of reminding me what Peacemaker is. So it seems to me like they are planting the themes and the thematic seeds for an Infinite Crisis type of storyline. I don't think it's going to come soon. I think it's going to come much further down the line, because you can't just do Peacemaker and then be like, oh, we're doing Infinite Crisis. And obviously we need to meet a ton of other new characters, but I thought that was interesting and worth mentioning. So Batman and Tim Drake Robin meets Damian. Red Hood is in the background, who plans to have the Joker loose for his master plan. It goes wrong, and now the Joker is on the loose. Bats, Tim, and Damian now has to deal with Joker, and in the final battle, Tim sacrifices himself for Damian. Batman now lost another Robin. The ending is Damian taking Tim Robin. Is that what you wrote time? But I think you meant Tim Drake Robin suit, and in honor of him. So now it's Batman and two Robins, Dick and Damian, while Red Hood is still that mysterious figure that Batman later figured out is Jason. I think that would be really cool. You know, I think that kind of challenges Batman's like way of life of bringing in these kids as sidekicks, and, you know, it goes wrong, where Batman's whole thing is no kill, but if he's bringing kids in who are dying, that kind of goes against that. So I think that can make for a really interesting theme and, you know, have some thematic value. I think that would be cool for sure. You're a creative kid, Hungry, I got to tell you. All right. So now we got let's do Avengers Doomsday first. All right. Avengers Doomsday. So James Mack teased, and in his tweet, he had the emojis, but he had a 4 emoji, a sunglasses emoji, and an American flag versus Dr. Doom. So that seems to me that the Fantastic Four, Cyclops, and Captain America are going to have a battle scene with Dr. Doom. Sounds awesome, but I think there's more to it, okay? I think there is more to it. And what I am getting from this is that the Fantastic Four and the X-Men are going to be teaming up, which is interesting because there's a scoop that I personally got that after I got, I've noticed a lot of others have gotten it, is that Monica Rambeau, remember at the end of the Marvels, how she ended up fixing the incursion wall, but she ended up on the other side. And then she ended up with Beast and the X-Men in a different universe. So what's interesting to me about this is that we also heard that Monica Rambeau is going to have to, the X-Men and our main Earth Avengers, which I think is going to be Sam Wilson's Avengers, not the new Avengers, are going to be fighting, and Monica is going to have to choose sides, and supposedly she's going to choose sides with the X-Men. So if she's going to choose sides with the X-Men, and then the Fantastic Four are going to be with the X-Men, or the Fantastic Four going to be against the Avengers? Because I don't see that happening. I don't see the Fantastic Four fighting the Avengers. However, I don't think all of these teams are going to be fighting in unison. I think there are going to be dilemmas between them, and I think that's what's going to make this so interesting. The question of morality and them having different perspectives, which was a big theme about the Illuminati. And that is something that the Russos love touching on. That's what they did with Civil War. They did it a bit with Winter Soldier. They did it with Infinity War and Endgame, obviously, especially with Thanos. So I think there's something interesting there. And I think that the X-Men and the Avengers are definitely going to be at odds. And I'm curious to how the Fantastic Four are going to be in play in that, which will be interesting to see, because Reed has a lot of moral complexity to him, and he is someone who ends up in the gray area a lot. So I think that's going to be interesting. And you know, the other thing that Daniel RPK said is that the X-Men are destroying other universes. And this brings us back to that theme of the moral dilemma of Incursions. But what I think this is that I think my theory is that the X-Men are either destroying universes for one of two reasons. They're either, or maybe both. They're destroying universes. I think they're destroying universes to avoid incursions. Because remember, in an incursion, two Earths collide, either both of them explode or one survives and the other one dies. But that's a big gamble to take. If you're on one Earth, you don't know if your Earth is going to make it or not. So if you just destroy all the other planets and there are no planets to collide into, you save yourself. I think that the X-Men are going to be destroying other Earths. And I don't want to say all of the X-Men will believe this, but I think a lot of them are going to justify destroying other Earths and universes by the fact that they've always been oppressed, they've always been targeted, and they're like, we need to do this to save ourselves, and these people wanted to kill us anyway, so screw them, or they would want to kill us if they were on our Earth, and Magneto and Charles Xavier, like that moral dilemma is going to be a big theme, okay? So I think that sounds awesome. Like there has to be moral dilemma to this storyline. I think Avengers Doomsday, which I've said before, I think a lot of Avengers Doomsday is going to be the time runs out storyline, because the only other movie they have coming before this is Spider-Man Brand New Day. And I don't see a lot of it being told there up until we found out something else. Okay. And what we found out is very interesting. And this comes from Josh, Den of Nerds, that Sadie Sink is playing a character known as Abyss. I know, she looks nothing like her. Okay, whatever, I don't care. Anyway, Abyss will reportedly be because Sadie Sink is playing, they said, is the multiverse, and Abyss is the human form of the multiverse. And Abyss's first appearance was in the Hickman saga in New Avengers. She is a cosmic being that was created by the Builders. Okay? These are the Builders. And she represents mystical, spiritual, and cosmic balance in evolution. But she arrived on Mars with Ex Nihilo and Aleph. Where's Aleph? I got him here. To reshape Earth. And initially, they clashed with the Avengers, but eventually allied with them. And this was really big on Hickman's theme of inevitability and the cycles of creation and destruction and humanity's adaptation in the multiversal war. Okay. Now, if you want, I could go into each of these characters in depth for you, which maybe we will, but let's get to some chats from Hungry first. In the MCU reset, should Marvel use the Inhumans? I think so. I like the Inhumans. Okay. I think the Inhumans are really cool. Like in the right story, they came back in this Imperial storyline that Hickman's writing right now, and they are so cool. I know Comics Explained hates on them, and I'm a big fan of his, but I got to tell you, not that I really like watch a lot of his videos, just because like I read the comics myself. But I love what he does, and whenever I do watch his videos, I really like it. I love him on Twitter. He's a good guy. But anyway, I don't know why he doesn't like the Inhumans. I think they're really cool, and they like what their role is in Imperial is crazy. Okay, so Imperial basically a bunch of people were poisoned and they thought it was Wakanda, and then they thought Wakanda sniped some of the Xandarians and all this stuff. And basically every faction in the Marvel cosmic like sector is at war with each other. And as the story went on, we found out that it was the Grandmaster who manipulated it to happen that way. But the Grandmaster manipulated it to happen that way over a board game, like a cosmic version of chess, with Maximus. And Maximus was gambling the entire intelligence database of the Inhumans. And the Grandmaster won. And he was like, I don't even want it, but we're going to start this war anyway. Okay. And it was crazy. So yeah, I like the Inhumans. For a rebooted Avengers movie post Secret Wars, what do you think about the title Avengers Assemble or Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes? I'm not completely opposed to it, but I like when the title tells us a little more about the movie. Like I like that we know we're going into Secret Wars and Doomsday, and I think it helped us, especially me as a live streamer, like talk about where the story is going. So I like that we get those details, and I think that signals to the comic purists like what it's going to be, and then people start talking about it. But I wouldn't be opposed. I also think Avengers Assemble kind of sounds pretty badass, or Earth's Mightiest Heroes. Like it does sound cool. So at the same time, I think it could work. And because it is a reset and like a new thing, they might decide to do things differently that time around. You know what I mean? They might change the way that they do things, and maybe the Avengers won't have a title like Age of Ultron, Infinity War, Secret Wars, whatever. This is a hot take, but I really don't want the rebooted Avengers being young. Like I prefer characters like Cyclops and Wolverine to be played by actors in their early 30s, similar to David Cornswell. I kind of agree. I don't want like 20-year-old kids being the Avengers. I don't want to feel like the Avengers are immature, and I don't want to feel like I'm watching a Gossip Girl version of the Avengers. So definitely I agree with you. Do you want me to go into the other characters like Ex Nihilo, the Builders, and Aleph, who are also important around Abyss in that storyline? If you tell me yes, I'll do it. If you don't want me to do it, that's fine. I won't do it. But I think it would be crazy if Sadie Sink is playing Abyss, because if Sadie Sink is playing Abyss and Abyss is in Spider-Man Brand New Day, like what's crazy about Spider-Man Brand New Day right now is the fact that Kevin Feige said this story is grounded, but I didn't exactly say grounded on which Earth. And that hinted that we're getting like a classic Spider-Man movie, but it could be somewhat multiversal. And then we started hearing about Punisher and Hulk, and we started thinking it was going to be Mr. Negative. And then everyone kind of came to the consensus that this movie is going to be a classic Spider-Man movie. And now we're talking about Abyss being in Spider-Man Brand New Day. And Abyss is an important character to the Jonathan Hickman story that leads us into Secret Wars. I don't think this movie is going to be a classic Spider-Man movie anymore. I really don't. And I was starting to think that for a while, but like I didn't put like the words to thought yet. And then when I heard that Abyss is who Sadie Sink is playing, I was like, yeah, this is not going to be a classical Spider-Man movie. This movie is going to be a movie that they use to push the rest of the MCU story forward, which I understand why. And the why is a bit more than it's the movie right before Avengers Doomsday. It also has to do with the fact that they failed to build up to this movie with other movies. Box office is down, and they're having all these problems. And if they're going to have a Spider-Man movie that's coming out 6 months before Avengers Doomsday, they need to capitalize on the audience of Spider-Man Brand New Day, meaning the people that buy the tickets and go to see the movie. They need to sell those people with Spider-Man Brand New Day to also want to buy a ticket to Avengers Doomsday. And in order to do that, they have to connect the stories. And that's what they're doing. I think some of it, they're going to try to keep it like a classical Spider-Man story, but it's also going to be multiversal. That's my opinion. And here's the other thing. Like, as much as I want a classical Spider-Man movie, most of the movies that have done well in the multiversal saga have been pretty heavily multiversal when you think about it, or have at least had some of these big ideas, you know, Deadpool and Wolverine. I don't really like Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, but it did well. And there are a lot of people that like it. Spider-Man No Way Home. Loki. Not a movie, but a show. Again, people loved it. So I do think there is something to be said for the multiversal stories. Sorry, meant to say rebooted X-Men, not Avengers. I kind of figured that's what you meant, but yeah, I don't want the Avengers or the X-Men to be like 21 years old. For a Black Panther movie reset with a new T'Challa, they should name the movie Black Panther King of Wakanda. That goes hard. I have a feeling because of all the flops and that the current Avengers roster is trash for Doomsday, it's why they are bringing Savage Hulk back in Brand New Day, because he will be in Doomsday. You also made me release something else. I think they're bringing Hulk back because the thing about the Hulk that I'm starting to realize, whether it is working, and I don't know that it is, I think Marvel Studios is under the impression that a Hulk movie doesn't work. A Hulk movie doesn't sell well. But Hulk adds spectacle to movies, and Hulk being a side character or a supporting character in a movie helps sell tickets. Where did I get that idea? I got that idea from the fact that Red Hulk was all over the marketing for Captain America Brave New World. And now they're, using a Hulk in Spider-Man. Obviously, Red Hulk didn't sell tickets. And I'm not sure that Hulk is going to help sell tickets to Spider-Man. I think the Punisher will. But I also think it's damn Spider-Man, bro. Like, Spider-Man is going to sell because he's Spider-Man. He is the number one character in comic book media. Like, he just is. They are bringing Steve back, Savage Hulk back, Thor is still cool, and Iron Man is coming back. Are you talking about post-Secret Wars or for Secret Wars? Doomsday / Secret Wars. Before Doomsday. I don't know if Steve and Iron Man are coming back before Doomsday. That I disagree with. the only movie they'd be able to pop up in is Spider-Man. I still think Spider-Man Brand New Day is going to be incredible. You know, Spider-Man No Way Home is my favorite Spider-Man movie. It's probably it might be my number one favorite MCU movie right now. I love No Way Home. I might even watch it tonight. I just bought an Apple TV. So I didn't know this, but I have an LG OLED C2. And the smart TV, which interesting, is you get better quality. If you're streaming a movie on Apple TV, the app, you get better quality from the Apple TV box than you would using the app on the TV. Same with Disney Plus, HBO Max, all of it. You get better quality you get the full uncompressed Dolby Atmos, and you get much better 4K and Dolby Vision. You get a higher bit rate from the Apple TV box than you do on the app. I don't know if you guys even care about that, but I'm such a tech geek. I freak out about all that stuff. I should have wrote that better. I meant because the current roster of Avengers is trash and they need heavy hitters for Doomsday, it's why Steve is coming back, Savage Hulk in Brand New Day, and Iron Man is coming. I think Iron Man's coming too. And I that's a big reason. It's like their current roster is trash. And they really dropped the ball. Like Captain America Brave New World needed to be a banger. It needed to be a banger for so many reasons. It needed to be a banger because if they are going to make Sam Wilson Captain America, which I'm fine with. I like Sam Wilson as a character. I think it's complete BS when people are like, he's not Captain America. I think that's racist. I think he's a good character. But like, you're making him Captain America. The movie obviously needs to be good because you need to establish him as Captain America. And you know that people are going to complain about it. And if the movie is good, like, those people kind of have to shut up. But because the movie wasn't good, now they get to say the movie sucked. So I think that was part of the problem. They really dropped the ball on that one. And that was an important one for that reason. And then, like, the new Avengers movie is good, but I don't know that the whole fandom is, like, so hyped over those characters. I don't see them being able to be, like, the main Avengers. And obviously, you know, I was even surprised at the new Avengers because even the new Avengers roster in the comics is actually dope. Like, they're not, like, B-list characters. I mean, some of them are, like, Luke Cage is on there, Jessica Jones, but, you know, you still got, like, Spider-Man and Wolverine. So and the Hickman comics, like, it's not, it's like, it's the real Avengers. It's Captain America, Iron Man, T'Challa. Like, you have all of those characters. So, you know, Fantastic Four drops on digital on Tuesday. Is it Tuesday or is it Monday? Let me check. It's the 23rd. I think it's Tuesday. Tuesday, the 23rd. So next week, I'm going to be streaming on Tuesday and on Thursday. Friday, I am doing the Cultured Pull List. So that's the comic show. I'm doing it with Michael, aka Casual Experts. I'm excited about that. So yeah, you know, the thing about Spider-Man having Abyss, not really on the DCU front. Like, there really isn't any DCU news. But I will say, in terms of the DCU, like, when they first announced Superman, Man of Tomorrow, I was excited about it. I was like, I rewatched Superman and I was like, oh, there's not really any big DCU movies to look forward to that I'm excited about. I'm just excited about Lanterns right now. I don't know anything about Batman. I don't really care much for Supergirl. I'm sure it'll be a good, fun movie, but I'm not like stoked about it. And I was thinking about it, about Man of Tomorrow. Like, yeah, it's a cool movie and whatnot, but we need other characters having projects in the slate to be excited about. It's not expanding and fast enough for me, at least in terms of the slate. I understand they just released Superman. Batman's not coming out tomorrow. I get it. But we need other characters to get excited about. And Lanterns, we only have one photo of. Supergirl, we obviously have the post-credit scene. But, we don't have much in terms of anything to be excited about. And I think it's weird that they announced a sequel to Superman before talking about other characters that would be on the Justice League. Do you think Batman will appear in Man of Tomorrow as a cameo, setting up Brave and the Bold? I think it's possible. It's coming out in the same year as the Batman Part 2, but I do think that James Gunn is going to want to get some DCU Batman buzz going around that time, and I think that's the way to do it. I think that's a good point. I actually think it's a brilliant question, because I do think that there's not much he could do with the DCU Batman, because he needs to give Matt Reeves' Batman movie its space. But I do think a quick cameo in Man of Tomorrow could be a quick way to do it, where he could get people talking about the DCU Batman just enough and still give that space to the Batman Part 2. But I just can't believe that we're not talking about, I know we're not going to talk about Aquaman or Flash, but we're talking about Clayface and there's so many other characters they could bring in that they could do projects with. I wish the Man of Tomorrow project was another movie. I'm annoyed that it's just another Superman movie. I want to hear more about other characters. I know they want to put off Flash and Aquaman because of what happened with DC EU, but they could do something with Green Arrow. There's so many other characters. So that's what's annoying to me. But I don't think people realize how big of a deal it is that Abyss is going to be in this movie, because Abyss, it's a big embodiment of Hickman's themes of inevitability and all that. But there are also the builders and the map makers, and the builders are the oldest race in the Marvel universe. And they're the architects of life who created gardeners to reshape worlds. And they have these huge fleets and technology that nobody even understands. And they are the main antagonists of the Infinity event of that run that came before Time Runs Out. Yeah, the fact that Abyss is in this movie, I'm telling you, it is not grounded. All right. Do you think that Brave and the Bold needs to release summer of 2028 at the latest? I'm going to be so mad if it's past summer of 2028. I think it is going to be past that, because the Batman is coming out October of 2027. I think they're going to want to give it a full year, because it's not, maybe a little less, but I guess summer is, I would say summer is the earliest it will come out. That's what I would say, because the summer you give it a couple months before October, and they can give it 9 months. But because here's the thing, they're going to want to give that movie time in the theaters. Then they're going to want to give it time to purchase digitally and 4K DVD and all that kind of stuff. And then they're going to want it on HBO Max for a while. And they don't want, when you put out two products that are similar, they don't both just do better. One ends up eating the profits of the other. So that's the thing. I want lanterns, man. Like, I need a Green Lantern project. Okay. That's what I'm. But I do want DCU Batman too. Like, it's kind of annoying that we're getting all this Superman. Like, where the hell's Batman, bro? Batman's the GOAT. You know, they sold 500,000 copies of Batman #1, the one that just came out. That comic came out 2 weeks ago. Okay. That is insane. 500,000 units of a comic book in 2 weeks is like crazy numbers. People just love Batman. Okay, off what you said just now makes sense. And now I want Robin more than ever in the Batman Part 2 because I'm impatient. I've been waiting too long for a Robin. That's fair. Like, as much as I don't want Robin in that movie, I could understand where you're coming from. And I wouldn't hate it if they did Robin, but I would prefer to not have Robin. But I do like, in some of the comics, I like Robin more than others. I'm rereading the Chip Zdarsky Batman run right now, and Tim Drake is so cool in that comic. You know what would be crazy? If he does Batman of Zur and R at some point in the DCU. For those of you who don't know what Batman of Zur and R is like Batman created a contingency plan if he ever went too far or died or something like that. And basically, Batman of Zur and R is an alternate version of himself in his mind where he takes over, but he has like no compassion. He's all Batman, but he doesn't have the Bruce Wayne component that like grounds him and keeps him human and compassionate. Savage. But he looks, let me get a picture of him for you guys. Hold on. I feel like for a DCU Batman trilogy, killing off Tim Drake and Alfred would be big deaths. Tim for Brave and the Bold, Alfred for the third movie. I agree. I think they got to kill off Alfred. Like, the fact that Alfred's been dead for so long in the comics, and people who don't read comics like don't even know it, you kind of got to rip the Band-Aid off. I also think it would just go so hard. Those kind of stakes, it would be crazy. Hold on. I got the photo. Batman of Zur-En-Arrh. He's got a very colorful looking suit, which is kind of ironic considering he's so much more savage, but he looks a little more sus. But he is crazy. The Zur-En-Arrh stories are wild. And it's a Grant Morrison thing. And they're obviously pulling from Grant Morrison. This is from the Chip Zdarsky run, though. I hope so. I really do. I think we're going to get the oath in Lanterns, but I'm hoping that Jon Stewart appears in Man of Tomorrow. I think there's a good chance he does, because at that point, like, Superman is going to have appeared in his own movie. I'm sure Superman's going to appear in Supergirl. So they could share the spotlight a bit, afford to share the spotlight a bit more in Man of Tomorrow. And it's clear they want to establish Jon Stewart in a big way. So I could see Jon Stewart appearing in Man of Tomorrow. I'm curious to what they're going to do after that movie, because here's what I think about Man of Tomorrow and Superman teaming up with Lex. Superman always teams up with Lex, but it never ends well. And Lex Luthor is not going to stay good. He's never good. He always does something with ulterior motives. And just because he's teaming up with Superman doesn't mean he's going to become a hero and not a villain. So I think it's going to play into something larger where Lex Luthor becomes more powerful and more savage than we've ever seen him before. And I think that could be a bigger crossover movie, and maybe that would be the Justice League movie, and Lex Luthor is actually the first big bad, kind of like Loki was. They built Loki up, and I think Lex Luthor, they're going to build him up through Superman. He could very possibly appear in other projects before Man of Tomorrow. And then after Man of Tomorrow, maybe that is the time for the first Justice League movie, and Lex Luthor is the villain of that Justice League movie. That I could see happening 100%. Even though we're not getting a Green Lantern movie, I'll be happy if we just get multiple seasons of Lanterns with Hal, while John appears in both Lanterns and other movies like Man of Tomorrow and Justice League. I agree. At this point, we got to be happy with what we're getting. But like, if we got a couple of HBO series with Hal Jordan, I would be happy with that for sure. And listen, I feel like a lot of people, especially who don't read comics, are like, "Oh, Hal Jordan or bust." Like, I'm a Hal Jordan guy. Don't get me wrong. But like, if you actually read comics, you would know Jon Stewart is still a dope ass character. You know what I mean? Oh, I almost forgot. There is a piece of DCU news. That's interesting. Where is it? Hold on. Matt Reeves said he's open to working on a DCU project after the Batman saga ends. He also did say he's unsure if the Batman Part 3 would ever happen. Kevco said he thought The Question would be a cool project for Matt Reeves to do, which I agree. I get the detective vibe and all that, and you could play that into the Justice League, because The Question, he's on the current Justice League run team of the current Justice League ongoing run right now. But I would love to see Matt Reeves do DCU stuff after the Batman. Like, you get a director like that involved in the DCU, that's a huge deal. Maybe the first Justice League movie is Brainiac and Luthor fusion, like Justice League Unlimited. Oh, I forget. Brainiac. How can I forget about Brainiac? Yeah, that would be really cool. That would be really cool because I also really want Brainiac. I think Brainiac is 100% going to be the villain in Man of Tomorrow. I don't know why I feel like Reeves would crush it with a Constantine movie. That would be hard. That would be hard. Constantine's cool as hell. What if they did a Batman Beyond from like another universe? Batman Beyond's also in the current Justice League run. It's Justice League Unlimited too. So it's like a huge, ever expanding roster that Mark Waid is writing, and Batman Beyond is in it alongside actual Batman. And he's not like an old version of Batman. He's like our Batman. All right. It's kind of a short show today. I'm going to wrap it up unless you got anything else. Oh, here we go. Once the DCU Batman is established, do you think DC should revisit the animated Batman Beyond movie? Yeah, I think they should do it because everyone wants it. It would perform. I think they need to do it further down the line. Like, let the DCU Batman have one or maybe even two movies, I would say, and then do it down the line. You know, like that was the thing. Into the Spider-Verse worked because it was completely different and separate from MCU Spider-Man. I think the first one came out Into the Spider-Verse after only one Spider-Man movie, though. So maybe they could do that with just after one. I guess I don't know why they would need two. But that Batman Beyond movie looked so good, man. Oh, I would love for them to do that. Batman Beyond is such a cool character and such a cool concept. And other than the animated show, like they never really utilized him. It's crazy. I don't think the DCU Batman needs two movies. Just Brave and the Bold is enough because it worked with Spider-Man. Yeah, I agree. I would also love to see like an animated Green Arrow movie. I think Green Arrow could work in like an animated version. The current run, who's writing that again? Hold on. Green Arrow, current. It's good though. Oh, Josh Williamson. Yeah, he's one of the best writers at DC. But yeah, that current Green Arrow run is really cool, and it makes me that's what made me think like Green Arrow would be a really cool character to do an animated movie like that. Yeah, that too. And like I don't think they're going to do a Green Arrow movie, at least not anytime soon. And oh man, he just does such cool stuff that would you could really lean into that animated style. Who else would be cool for an animated movie? Moon Knight would be sick for an animated movie like that too. Uh, Flash. Flash is bigger than that. They got to do a live action Flash. You know, it really sucks that people trashed the Flash movie that came out. I loved that movie, man. I thought it was so good. And it sucks because now it's like most people hate it and we're not going to get Flash for a while because of that. Like I know Arrow is different from Batman, but come on, one billionaire who uses his resource to fight crime as a masked vigilante with multiple sidekicks. Yeah, it is definitely similar. But Green Arrow is also like a crazy leftist politically, so he's a little different. Batman's also much cooler. Like Batman is the GOAT, you know. I think Batman is the coolest comic book character out of all of them. I mean, come on, he's fucking Batman, bro. The Batmobile, the fact that he has no superpowers and he still beats everyone, like he's the coolest one. I need to reread Court of Owls. Maybe I'll do that after I finish the Chip Zdarsky run that I'm rereading. I have a cool idea on what MCU could do with Iron Man post reset. Oh, I'd love to hear that. I can't wait for Iron Man to be back. Iron Man is one of my all-time favorite characters. Iron Man's also the coolest. Iron Man is cool as hell. And he's also a billionaire. Billionaires are cool, bro. I don't discriminate on people because they're loaded. No, oh, I meant it wrong. I read it wrong. I thought it said the next title for Peacemaker is Ignorance is Crisis, but it's Ignorance is Chris. If they threw a crisis hint out after I just said that, I would lose my cool. In the new Ultimate Marvel universe, Iron Man is like 20 years old, and then there's shows like Iron Man Armored Adventure where Tony is a teenager. What if they did that with post reset? I don't know if I would want him that young. I feel like it's got to be at least 30. A young 20-year-old Iron Man similar to the new Ultimate Universe would be enough to differentiate. That's a good point. Maybe that they go young to differentiate from RDJ because they're going to have to differentiate. Because I'll tell you, the issue with recasting someone like Iron Man is that actor and that Iron Man is going to constantly be compared to RDJ. And how do you live up to that? You know, like even if he is hypothetically better than RDJ, a lot of people would never admit it. People get so emotional about this stuff. And I love RDJ. I love Iron Man, but it's just true. People get so emotional. Like, I used to be friends with someone who used to always be like, oh, well, you know, The Dark Knight is bad. And like, he thought like I got offended by it because he is so emotional about movies and stuff that he's not even capable about being honest. So that's the thing, you know? Like, I don't know. I think that no matter who it is, they're always going to be compared to RDJ. And by the way, whoever they recast T'Challa with is always going to be compared to Chadwick too. And those are tough shoes to fill also. So they're going to have to do things to differentiate. Maybe going a bit younger is a good way to go about it. I'm curious if the new X-Men are going to be in Secret Wars. I think they are, because Kevin Feige said that this movie is about new beginnings as opposed to Endgame, which was about endings. It's only a younger Tony I'm cool with, but Steve, T'Challa, Hulk got to be older. I kind of agree with that. Like, I guess with Steve, if they do the like his origin again, which I don't think they're going to do his origin and like make us rewatch the whole thing, but I'm just saying if they introduce us to the new Steve Rogers at the time of his origin where he gets out of the ice, it could make sense that he's younger because, you know, he was young when he got out of the ice. I mean, he was old technically, but he was frozen when he was young. So it could make sense for Steve Rogers, but you know, T'Challa too, I guess, because it depends on, you know, if he's been king already, but they could do that. They could easily say he's been king and he was king on another universe and he's a little older. Like they could pull that off. I also don't think that's going to be that big of a deal because we haven't had T'Challa for a while. Like we haven't had T'Challa as long as we haven't had Iron Man. T'Challa in Secret Wars. I really hope so. I think they're afraid to do it. That's what I think. I think they are afraid to recast T'Challa because they don't think the people who are against recasting T'Challa could handle it, and they don't want to rock the boat with the mob. That's what I think. Which is silly. I mean, they said they weren't recasting him because they wanted to respect him, but Chadwick's brother said he would have wanted to be recast. And they also recast Thunderbolt Ross from William Hurt. So, like, that standard isn't applied across the board, which means the standard isn't legitimate. Why is Marvel afraid of internet people? They act like they about to burn the studios down. LMAO. Yeah, I agree. I agree. But there is that element of the internet that like is out for blood with anything and everything. It's crazy. And I think people are becoming less afraid of that though. Like I think people are, and hopefully, you know, they just do what they think is right and they don't care about that anymore. It's kind of starting to think companies are moving in that direction finally. You can't win with those people because if you don't do 100% what they want when they want, they get mad. Like even if you just differentiate like 2%, they'll lose it. So it makes no sense. And also, T'Challa is one of the most important characters in the Marvel universe. You can't have a Marvel universe without Black Panther. And T'Challa is Black Panther, okay? T'Challa is the definitive iconic version of the Black Panther. Nobody wanted Shuri, okay? Like, and also at this point, you now have Wakanda Forever. So, like, if you want a beautiful tribute to Chadwick, you have that movie, Wakanda Forever. It's not going anywhere. You can watch it whenever you want. But, like, us comic fans who care about these characters want them to exist. And also, the representation angle. Like, that's what I don't understand. It's like, you know that character is important for young kids. Like, come on. That video of the Rizzler in the Black Panther costume is hysterical, by the way. With the T'Challa reset, do you think they should reset Wakanda as well, as in Shuri and the rest of the cast? It's a good question. I want to say no, but I think if you want to make it feel fresh and new and not have everything be compared to Chadwick, you kind of have to recast everyone. But for some reason, I think they won't. I think they'll keep him, which isn't the right move. I think the right move would be to recast everyone because it's harder to hold up the new actor to Chadwick if everyone else and everything else is new and fresh. Because otherwise, everyone's going to be laser focused on that one actor by himself rather than the big picture. That's a great point, too. That chemistry was insane. They were right together. But yeah, like the chemistry could be off. They gotta recast everyone. I think the more recasting for the reset, the better. I really do. I think there's some characters you kind of like the ones that are still alive. Like you got to keep Paul Rudd. You got to keep Tom Holland. Who else could get recast? Yeah, I think the ones that are alive and are big, like that are working. But Hulk, you got to get rid of Mark Ruffalo. He is just garbage. He's just not a talented actor at all. You also add in the fact that the cast would still be emotional about Chadwick. That's why everyone needs to go. Coogler and everyone. It's a good point. Ryan Coogler is a talented director, though. It's going to be hard to get someone better for the job than him. But I don't think he's on board with the recast. So you kind of got to let him go. By the way, I don't understand why people are trying to crap all over John Watts. Like, John Watts crushed it with the Spider-Man trilogy, okay? Every one of those movies was a banger. And No Way Home is, I'll debate this with anyone. No Way Home is the best Spider-Man movie. $2028 and the recast T'Challa, and then you got anti-recast people saying it's disrespectful, even though Chadwick passed away almost 10 years ago. R.I.P. Chadwick. Yeah, that's silly. Like, it's Hollywood. Characters get recast all the time. We don't retire characters because an actor passed away. Thankfully, James Bond never did that. Thankfully, they never did that with Batman. I don't know if well, actually, no, Adam West passed away. You know, this is how things works. It's not disrespectful at all. And his brother said he would want the character to be recast. I'm actually going to look at exactly what the brother said. Chadwick Boseman's brother, Derek Boseman, publicly stated that he believed Chadwick would want the role of T'Challa to be recast, arguing that the character was bigger than any one actor and that eliminating the Black King would deprive the young Black children of an important role model. What did I say about representation? How long have I been saying that? Derek Boseman stated that his brother understood the immense power and positive influence the character carried, and that he felt T'Challa needed to live on in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. His statements were made to TMZ in December 2021, supporting the efforts of fans who had signed a petition asking Marvel to recast the role. There you have it. But yeah, it's true. It's like adults who are selfish are like, oh, yeah, we shouldn't recast him because it's disrespectful. His brother said he would have wanted to recast it. And like young Black kids who like, yeah, there are other Black characters in the MCU, but Chadwick is like the big one, T'Challa is the big one. Black Panther is one of the biggest characters in comic books. Like, you got to have him. You know who else I really want to see, though, is Blue Marvel. I really like Blue Marvel. What Derek Boseman said is also the reason why a recasted T'Challa should be at least 30 years old, like a David Corenswet, not a 20-year-old T'Challa. Explain. Oh, we do have some other DCU news. I'll get through this chat first. Meaning that T'Challa should be played by a powerful actor in his 30s, not a 20-year-old, because it wouldn't be as powerful. It's a great point. I agree. You could definitely get a more powerful actor who's a bit more experienced, more older, has some more status to him, 100%. So James Gunn was asked if we will see more Charlton characters like Captain Atom, The Question, or Blue Beetle in his DCU. He goes, you might be in luck. I think this is probably about Blue Beetle because he said previously that the Blue Beetle of the Blue Beetle movie, and a lot of people confuse this, okay? It's very simple. James Gunn has always said that Blue Beetle character is canon to the DCU, but the movie isn't, meaning that Blue Beetle is the DCU Blue Beetle, but that movie doesn't exist in canon. I really like Ted Kord. I'm a bigger Ted Kord guy than Jaime Reyes, but I also really like The Question and Captain Atom. I feel like the question would be great for the Reeves verse. Yeah, that would be really cool. It's funny you say that because Kevco said that he thinks Matt Reeves should do the question for the DCU. I could see it go either way, but I don't think they're going to give him other characters to like expand the Batman epic crime saga with. If anything, they're going to want him to do DCU. And the fact that he's open to doing DCU means it's basically a lock. Because why would James Gunn not take advantage of that? I agree. I would love to see both, but I just don't think it's going to happen because I think it's going to be too complicated and they're going to have the opportunity to end it after the second one and they're going to do it. Anyway, what they should do is leave the door open for a third movie. Agreed, but I do think they should, I would rather they give a proper ending with a small door opening for a third one because the second one very well could be the ending, and I would rather have a real ending than not. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. I got to run, but thanks for joining. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your support. As always, Hungry, I appreciate you. I know you're always here. It means a lot, and it's always a blast getting to shoot it with you. So thanks again, and I'll be live next week on Tuesday. So peace.